The sound of claws scraping against metal echoed through the underground chambers of the Galactic Military Academy. Deep beneath the polished floors and gleaming corridors where cadets from 12 different worlds learned to fight together, something waited in the darkness. Alex Rivers pressed his face against the reinforced viewing window, watching the massive creature pace back and forth in its containment cell. The Shadow Stalker was everything the stories claimed and more. Nearly 3 meters tall when it stood upright. Its body rippled with muscle beneath skin that shifted colors like liquid mercury. Its eyes glowed a soft amber in the dim light, and when it moved, it made no sound at all despite its enormous size. Still curious about the beast human, Instructor Prime Kalen approached from behind, his insectoid legs clicking against the floor. The Altarian's compound eyes reflected the light from the viewing chamber as he joined Alex at the window. Tomorrow you face it alone. Perhaps your time would be better spent preparing your weapons. Alex didn't look away from the creature. Has anyone ever tried talking to it? The question seemed to amuse Kalen. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. Talk to it? You might as well try to negotiate with a plasma storm. The Shadow Stalker is a perfect killing machine from the deathworld of Nihilus 3. It knows only hunger and violence. But look at its eyes, Alex said quietly. There's intelligence there. The way it moves, the patterns. It's not random. Kalen's head tilted in that peculiar way insects do when confused. You humans see patterns where none exist. It is why your species relies so heavily on tools and weapons. You cannot trust your own instincts. Other cadets had gathered around the viewing area. Nira the Centaurian padded over on silent cat-like feet. Her golden fur caught the light as she moved, and her large green eyes held concern. Alex, you should listen to the instructor. The trials begin at dawn, and you're the last to face the creature. 11 of us have already survived, but barely. She gestured to Braun, the massive Terek standing near the back of the group. Even for his reptilian species, Braun was large, with scales that looked like natural armor and arms thick as tree trunks. A series of healing claw marks ran across his shoulder and chest. Braun nearly died last week, and he's 3 times your size. The big reptile snorted, a sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. The soft skin will be dead in minutes. Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no speed. What good are your clever words against claws that can cut through steel? Alex finally turned away from the window. Around him stood the other cadets who had already completed their trials. Each represented the best their species had to offer. There was Vel, whose people could see in 12 different spectrums of light. Rex, whose crystalline body could withstand impacts that would crush most other beings. Zara, whose species could leap 50 meters in a single bound. All of them bore the marks of their encounter with the Shadow Stalker. Bandages, healing gel patches, the careful way they moved that spoke of recent injuries. All except one. How did you do it, Lynn? Alex asked the quiet Etherean girl who stood apart from the others. Her people were known for their mental abilities, and she had emerged from the trial chamber without a single wound. Lynn's large, dark eyes seemed to look through Alex rather than at him. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I made myself invisible to its mind, hid my thoughts, my presence. It searched for me but could not find me. After an hour, the instructors declared the trial complete. See? Braun laughed, the sound echoing off the metal walls. Even the mind reader had to hide. What will you do, human? Tell it jokes until it dies of laughter? The laughter spread among the other cadets. Alex had grown used to it over the past 3 years at the academy. Humans were the newest species to join the Galactic Alliance, and most others saw them as weak generalists, too slow compared to the Centaurians, too weak compared to the Tereks, too fragile compared to the crystalline Rex's people. Instructor Kalen raised one of his forearms for silence. The trials exist for a reason. For 300 years, cadets have faced the Shadow Stalker alone. It separates those who can lead from those who merely follow. Some of you have shown courage, others cunning. A few have demonstrated superior firepower or natural advantages. He turned his compound gaze on Alex. Tomorrow, we will see what humans bring to the galaxy besides curiosity and questions. As the group began to disperse, Nira lingered behind. Alex, I know we haven't always been friendly. My people, we don't understand humans very well, but I don't want to see you die tomorrow. Please take the plasma rifle, or at least the energy shield. Alex smiled at her, and for a moment her cat-like features softened. Thanks, Nira, but I think I have a different plan. What plan? You've been down here every day for weeks just watching that thing. What could you possibly have learned that the instructors don't already know? Alex looked back at the viewing window. The shadow stalker had stopped pacing and was sitting in the center of its cell. Its amber eyes seemed to be looking directly at him, though Alex knew the creature couldn't see through the one-way glass. Did you know that on its home world, shadow stalkers live in family groups? They have complex social structures with different members playing different roles in the pack. Nira's ears flicked forward in surprise. How do you know that? I've been reading every report, every study, every piece of data the Academy has about Nihilus 3 and its creatures. Most people only read the tactical summaries. But the full xenobiological reports are fascinating. You've been studying? Braun had overheard and turned back toward them. What good will knowledge do when it's trying to tear your throat out? Maybe none, Alex admitted. But it's interesting how every report describes shadow stalkers as pack hunters who work together, use complex strategies, and show what the researchers call advanced problem-solving abilities. Yet here, alone in a cage, we see it only as a mindless monster. Instructor Kalen had also stopped to listen. You think too much, human. Sometimes a predator is simply a predator. Maybe, Alex said, or maybe we've never given it a chance to be anything else. The instructor's mandibles clicked with disapproval. Tomorrow at dawn you will enter that arena. You may bring any weapon or defensive system you choose. I suggest you choose wisely. As the others left, Alex remained at the window. The shadow stalker had moved closer to the glass, and for a long moment, human and alien regarded each other through the barrier. Then the creature did something unexpected. It placed one massive paw against the glass, almost as if reaching toward Alex. Alex pressed his hand against the window on his side, matching the gesture. For just an instant, he could have sworn he saw something flicker in those amber eyes. Not hunger or violence, but something else entirely. Something that looked almost like loneliness. The weapons vault beneath the Academy held enough firepower to level a small city. Rows upon rows of energy rifles, plasma cannons, molecular disruptors, and defensive shields lined the walls. Each piece of equipment represented centuries of military advancement from dozens of worlds. Alex walked slowly between the displays, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Instructor Kalen followed at a distance, his compound eyes tracking every movement. The Mark 7 plasma rifle, Kalen said, gesturing to a sleek weapon that hummed with barely contained energy, capable of punching through armor plating. Popular choice among your fellow cadets? Alex examined the weapon but didn't touch it. How many shots does it take to bring down a shadow stalker? With proper placement, perhaps 3 or 4 direct hits to vital areas. And if you miss, Kalen's mandibles clicked together. Then you die. They moved to the next display. A shimmering energy shield projected from a wrist-mounted device. Personal barrier technology from the Vorthon Empire. It can deflect most physical attacks and absorb considerable energy discharge. For how long? Against a shadow stalker's claws, perhaps 10 minutes of sustained assault. Alex nodded but again made no move to claim the equipment. They continued through the vault, past sonic disruptors, gravity hammers, and molecular net launchers. Kalen described each weapon's capabilities and limitations, growing more frustrated with each item Alex declined to take. Perhaps you would prefer the Terric battle armor, Kalen suggested, indicating a massive suit that looked like it could survive orbital bombardment. It would at least give you a chance to survive the first few attacks. Would I be able to move freely in it? Movement would be somewhat restricted, yes. Alex shook his head. What about that? He pointed to a simple recording device sitting on a side table. It was designed for field research, capable of audio and visual recording in various spectrums. Kalen stared at him. That is not a weapon, human. It is a scientific instrument. I'd like to take it. To record your final moments? That seems unnecessarily morbid, Alex smiled. Something like that. Word of Alex's unusual equipment choice spread quickly through the Academy. By evening, small groups of cadets gathered in the common areas, discussing the human's apparent death wish in hushed tones. Nira found Alex in the Academy's extensive library, surrounded by stacks of research reports and xenobiological studies. The cat-like centaurian settled into a chair across from him, her tail twitching with agitation. This is madness, she said without preamble. I've seen what that creature can do. Bronze scales are harder than most metals, and it nearly killed him. What chance do you have with nothing but a recording device? Alex looked up from a detailed analysis of shadow stalker communication patterns. Did you know they have over 300 distinct vocalizations? Most researchers dismiss them as simple growls and roars, but look at this. He showed her a complex chart mapping different sounds to different situations. This sound appears to be used when hunting in groups. This one seems to be a warning call. And this one, he pointed to a series of low, rhythmic sounds, only appears when they're interacting with young. Nira's ears flattened against her head. Alex, it doesn't matter how many sounds it makes. Tomorrow it will try to kill you. Will it, though? Alex leaned back in his chair. Think about it, Nira. 11 cadets have faced this creature over the past month. How many has it actually killed? None, but only because they were skilled enough to survive. Or because it wasn't really trying to kill them. The suggestion hung in the air between them. Nira's green eyes widened. That's impossible. It's a predator from a death world. Killing is what it does. On its homeworld, sure, but what if context matters? What if being alone in a cage for years has changed its behavior? Other cadets began to gather around their table, drawn by the discussion. Braun pushed through the crowd, his healing wound still visible beneath his natural scales. The human has lost his mind, Braun announced. I felt its claws rake across my chest. I heard it roar with bloodlust. There was nothing but hunger and violence in its eyes. You said it roared, Alex said. Can you describe the sound? Braun looked confused by the question. It was loud, threatening. The sound of death approaching. Alex pulled out his data pad and played an audio file. A deep rumbling sound filled the library. Several cadets stepped back instinctively. This is the vocalization you just described, Alex said. According to the research from Nihilus 3, this particular sound is made by shadow stalkers when they're playing. Playing? Rex's crystalline voice rang like struck bells. That thing was trying to kill Braun. Was it, though? Look at Braun's wounds. They're superficial. Painful, but not life-threatening. A shadow stalker's claws can cut through ship hull plating. If it wanted Braun dead, he would be. The gathered cadets fell silent. It was Lynn who spoke first, her voice barely audible. When I hid from its mind, I sensed something, confusion, frustration, but not murderous intent. Vel's multi-spectrum eyes shifted through different colors as he processed this information. The human may be onto something. I observed the creature during several trials. Its movements were not optimized for killing. They were almost restrained. This is ridiculous, Braun growled. It's a monster. End of discussion. But doubt had been planted. Alex could see it in their faces, the way they looked at each other, reassessing their memories of their own trials. Instructor Kalen appeared at the edge of the group. What is this gathering? Alex believes the Shadow Stalker doesn't want to kill us, Nira said. He thinks it's been playing with us. Kalen's head tilted in that insectoid way. Playing? Human. Your species' tendency to anthropomorphize other creatures will be your downfall. The Shadow Stalker is a perfect apex predator. It has no concept of play, no understanding of mercy. It knows only survival and dominance. But what if you're wrong? Alex stood gathering his research materials. What if 50 years of assumptions have blinded us to what's really happening? Then tomorrow you will die for your foolish theories. As the crowd dispersed, Nira lingered. Alex, even if you're right, even if it doesn't want to hurt you, the trial still requires you to survive 1 hour alone with it. How does believing it's playful help you do that? Alex smiled, and there was something in his expression that made Nira's fur stand on end. Not fear or bravado, but genuine excitement. Because, Nira, if I'm right about what's really going on down there, surviving isn't going to be the hard part. The hard part is going to be convincing everyone else that we've been torturing an intelligent being for 3 centuries. That night, Alex didn't sleep. Instead, he sat by his window, looking out at the alien stars, thinking about loneliness and communication, and the sound of something that might have been laughter echoing through the depths below. Dawn came too quickly and not quickly enough. Alex stood before the entrance to the trial arena, holding nothing but the small recording device he had requested from the weapons vault. Around him, nearly 200 cadets and instructors had gathered to witness what many believed would be the Academy's first trial death in over a decade. The arena itself was a masterpiece of hostile architecture. Multiple levels connected by narrow bridges and platforms created a 3-dimensional maze of shadows and hiding spots. Artificial fog drifted through the lower sections, while harsh spotlights created pools of blinding brightness, separated by areas of complete darkness. Everything was designed to give the Shadowstalker every possible advantage. "Last chance, human," Instructor Kalen said, his voice carrying more concern than usual. "The Mark 7 plasma rifle is still available. Or at minimum, a personal shield generator." Alex shook his head. "I won't need them." From the viewing gallery above, he could hear the murmur of voices. Most were betting on how long he would survive. The optimists gave him 5 minutes. The pessimists weren't that generous. Nira pressed against the gallery railing, her cat-like eyes wide with worry. "This is insane," she whispered to Lynn, who stood beside her with that distant expression her people wore when sensing emotions from others. "He's not afraid," Lynn said quietly. "I can feel his emotions from here. He's nervous, yes, but not afraid. He's excited, almost eager. Eager to die? No. Eager to prove something." The arena doors sealed behind Alex with a sound like a tomb closing. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made the artificial fog look like flowing blood. Somewhere in the maze above, below, and around him, the Shadowstalker was already moving. Alex walked to the center of the main floor and sat down cross-legged. He placed the recording device on the ground in front of him and activated it. Then he closed his eyes and began to make soft, rhythmic sounds with his throat. Not words, not music, just gentle vocalizations that echoed through the chamber. In the viewing gallery, the murmurs stopped. Every eye was fixed on the human sitting motionless in the center of the arena, while death stalked him from the shadows. "What is he doing?" Braun demanded. "Has he given up already?" "Shh," Vel hissed, his multi-spectrum vision tracking heat signatures throughout the arena. "The Shadowstalker has stopped moving. It's watching him." Indeed, the massive predator had frozen on a platform 15 meters above Alex. Its adaptive camouflage had made it nearly invisible against the metal grating, but now it seemed confused by the human's behavior. Every other cadet had either run, hidden, or immediately gone on the attack. None had simply sat down and started making gentle noises. Alex continued his soft vocalizations, varying the pitch and rhythm and patterns he had memorized from his research. These were the sounds Shadowstalkers made when greeting pack members. When establishing non-threatening intent, when saying "I am here, I am peaceful, I wish to communicate." The creature's head tilted, much like Instructor Kalen's insectoid confusion, but somehow more expressive. Its amber eyes fixed on the small figure below, and for the first time in years of trials, the Shadowstalker made no aggressive move. Minutes passed. The watching crowd grew restless. This wasn't what they had come to see. Where was the dramatic struggle for survival? Where was the test of courage and skill? Then Alex did something that made everyone's breath catch. He opened his eyes, looked directly up at the Shadowstalker's hiding spot, and smiled. Not the desperate grin of someone facing death, but a warm, genuine smile of recognition and greeting. He raised one hand in a small wave. The Shadowstalker's camouflage flickered and failed entirely. For a moment, its massive form was fully visible, perched above the human like death incarnate. Then it did something no one expected. It waved back. The gesture was unmistakable. One massive paw lifted and moved in a clear copying of Alex's motion. The sound that emerged from its throat wasn't a roar of challenge or hunger. It was questioning, almost conversational. Alex laughed. The sound echoed through the arena like nothing that had ever been heard there before. Not hysterical laughter born of fear or madness, but genuine delight and amusement. He clapped his hands together and made a series of playful sounds. The Shadowstalker's response was immediate. It leaped down from its platform, landing with surprising grace for something so large, but instead of attacking, it approached slowly. Its body language completely different from every previous trial. By the ancient codes, Instructor Kalen breathed, "It's not hunting him. It's communicating with him." In the viewing gallery, absolute silence had fallen. 200 beings from 12 different worlds watched in stunned amazement as human and Shadowstalker engaged in what could only be called a conversation. Alex would make a series of sounds, and the creature would respond with different vocalizations. When Alex gestured, the Shadowstalker would gesture back. "This is impossible," Rex whispered, his crystalline form ringing with disbelief. "It's a mindless killing machine." "No," Lynn said softly, her mental abilities picking up waves of emotion from the arena below. "It's not mindless at all. It's intelligent. It's been intelligent this whole time. and it's been alone down there for years, with no one who understood that it was trying to communicate. Alex stood up slowly, his movements careful and non-threatening. The shadow stalker was now only a few meters away, close enough that its claws could have torn him apart in seconds. Instead, it sat back on its haunches like an enormous cat and tilted its head again. Alex began to move in a slow, careful pattern. Not aggressive postures or fighting stances, but something that looked almost like a dance. The shadow stalker watched for a moment, then began to mirror his movements. What followed was unlike anything the Academy had ever witnessed. Human and alien moved together in a complex pattern that was part dance, part game, part conversation in a language of gesture and sound that transcended species barriers. When Alex stumbled slightly on an uneven part of the floor, the shadow stalker caught him with one massive but gentle paw, steadying him like a dance partner. When the creature moved too quickly and nearly knocked Alex over, it immediately backed away and made what sounded remarkably like an apology. They played. There was no other word for it. In an arena designed for mortal combat, human and shadow stalker engaged in playful chase, gentle wrestling, and elaborate games of gesture and response. Alex's laughter filled the chamber, and increasingly it was joined by the deep rumbling sounds that the shadow stalker made when it was happy. The hour passed like minutes. When the trial timer reached 0 and the arena doors opened, Alex and his new friend were sitting together, the massive predator's head resting gently on the human's shoulder, while Alex scratched behind what might have been ears. Alex looked up at the viewing gallery, where 200 faces stared down at him in absolute shock. His grin was infectious, bright with triumph and joy. "I told you it was lonely," he called out, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "It just wanted someone to play with." The viewing gallery erupted in chaos. Cadets shouted in disbelief. Instructors demanded explanations, and through it all, Alex sat peacefully in the arena with a creature that was supposed to be the galaxy's most perfect killing machine, resting its head on his lap like an oversized pet. "This is impossible," Instructor Prime Kalen repeated for the 4th time, his compound eyes reflecting the arena lights as he stared down at the unprecedented scene. "The Shadow Stalker is an apex predator from Nihilus 3. It cannot form social bonds with other species." "Apparently it can," Nira said softly, her enhanced hearing picking up the gentle rumbling sounds the creature was making. "Listen to it. That's not aggression. That's contentment." In the arena below, Alex was carefully examining the shadow stalker's massive paws, running his fingers along the retracted claws while making soothing sounds. The creature allowed this intimate contact without the slightest sign of threat, occasionally making soft vocalizations that sounded remarkably like conversation. "Look at the interaction patterns," Vel observed, his multi-spectrum vision analyzing every movement. "The human is displaying classic pack bonding behaviors, gentle touch, eye contact, vocal mimicry, and the stalker is responding appropriately." "Pack bonding?" Braun's voice cracked with disbelief. "It nearly killed me last week." Lynn's expression had grown distant as her mental abilities picked up the complex emotional exchanges happening below. "It wasn't trying to kill you, Braun, it was trying to play with you, but you responded with fear and aggression, so it became confused and defensive." "Play?" Braun touched his healing wounds. "Those claws could have gutted me." "But they didn't." Alex's voice carried up from the arena as he overheard the conversation. The recording device had been designed for field research and included excellent audio pickup. "Look at your injuries, Braun. Painful but shallow. If the Shadow Stalker wanted you dead, you would be. Instead, you have what look like play bites from an animal that doesn't understand its own strength." The massive Terax stared down at the human who was now gently scratching the Shadow Stalker's neck. The creature had rolled partially onto its side, exposing its throat and belly in the ultimate gesture of trust. "This changes everything," Instructor Kalen said quietly. "If the Shadow Stalker is truly sapient, if it's been trying to communicate all these years, then the Academy has been committing a crime for 3 centuries, Alex finished. "We've been imprisoning an intelligent being, forcing it to participate in what it thought were social interactions, then punishing it when those interactions went wrong." The Shadow Stalker suddenly lifted its head, looking directly at Alex with those amber eyes. It made a series of complex vocalizations varying in pitch and rhythm. Alex listened carefully, then responded with his own attempts at the creature's language. Their conversation lasted several minutes. Sometimes the shadow stalker would gesture with its massive paws and Alex would nod as if he understood. Other times Alex would point to objects around the arena and the creature would make different sounds. They're learning each other's languages, Lynn whispered in amazement. The human is teaching it basic communication concepts, and it's teaching him its own vocal patterns. The breakthrough moment came when Alex pointed to himself and said clearly, "Alex." He repeated this several times, touching his chest and saying his name. The shadow stalker watched intently, then touched Alex's chest with one gentle claw and made a sound like Alex, close enough to show understanding. Then the creature touched its own chest and made a complex series of vocalizations. Alex tried to repeat it, failed, tried again. On the third attempt, he managed something that sounded similar. The shadow stalker's reaction was unmistakable joy. The rumbling sound it made clearly laughter. "It has a name," Alex called up to the viewing gallery. "Its name is, well, I can't pronounce it properly yet, but it translates roughly to seeker of new things or maybe curious hunter. It's been trying to tell people its name for years." The gallery had fallen completely silent. Even the most skeptical observers couldn't deny what they were witnessing. This wasn't a mindless predator being tamed by human cleverness. This was first contact with an intelligent species that had been misunderstood for centuries. Instructor Kalen's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. If this is true, then every trial, every graduation requirement, every cadet who has faced the shadow stalker has been participating in what the creature thought was a greeting ceremony, Alex said gently. It's been alone down here for decades, maybe longer. When cadets entered the arena, it saw them as potential pack members. It tried to initiate play behavior, establish dominance hierarchies, create social bonds. But we interpreted it as aggression, Nira said, understanding dawning in her green eyes. Because that's what we expected to see. Humans do this too sometimes. We see what we think should be there instead of what actually is. The shadow stalker had moved closer to Alex again, nuzzling against him with surprising gentleness. The contrast between its fearsome appearance and its affectionate behavior was striking. "Watch its body language," Alex continued. When it approached Braun, it was in a play stance. Rear end up, front end down, the way Earth dogs initiate games. When Braun responded with weapons and fear, the stalker became defensive. It didn't want to hurt him, but it didn't understand why its attempt at friendship was being met with violence. Rex's crystalline form rang with harmonics of distress. We've been torturing it. All these years, all these trials. It thought we were rejecting its attempts at communication. The shadow stalker seemed to sense the emotional turmoil from the viewing gallery. It looked up at the assembled crowd and made a series of soft, questioning sounds. Several of the sounds were directed at specific cadets who had faced it in trials. "It remembers all of you," Alex translated. "It's asking why you were all so afraid. It's worried that it did something wrong." Lynn stepped forward to the railing, tears streaming down her face. Tell it I'm sorry. I hid from it because I was scared, but I can feel its emotions now. It's been lonely for so long." Alex relayed this message and the shadow stalker's response was immediate. It stood and looked directly at Lynn, making gentle, forgiving sounds. One by one, the other cadets who had faced the creature began to speak. Braun, initially reluctant, eventually admitted that the creature's actions during their trial had been restrained, almost careful. Vel acknowledged that the shadow stalker had multiple opportunities to deliver killing blows, but had held back. Even the instructors began to reassess their understanding of what had really been happening in the arena. As the hour stretched into 2, then 3, Alex and the shadow stalker continued their cultural exchange. The creature demonstrated its ability to change colors and textures, not for camouflage but as a form of artistic expression. Alex shared human music, playing recordings from his personal datapad that made the creature's eyes light up with delight. When Alex finally stood to leave, the shadow stalker's distress was obvious. It made plaintive sounds and touched his arm with gentle claws, clearly asking him to stay. "I'll come back," Alex promised. "But now I need to talk to people about getting you out of this cage and back to your home." The creature seemed to understand. It settled back onto its haunches and made a sound that needed no translation. "Goodbye, friend. Come back soon." As Alex walked toward the arena exit, The shadow stalker followed him to the door, pressing against the barrier that would soon separate them again. The look in its amber eyes was no longer that of a caged predator. It was the look of someone who had finally found a friend after years of loneliness, and who was afraid of being alone again. The emergency council meeting had been called within hours of Alex's unprecedented trial. The Academy's highest-ranking officials sat around a circular table in the secure conference chamber, their faces reflecting a mixture of confusion, concern, and in some cases, outright denial. Director Thane, an elderly Vulcarian whose people had founded the Academy 3 centuries ago, placed his 6-fingered hands flat on the table's surface. His skin had taken on the deep purple hue that indicated serious stress. "Explain to me again how a human cadet managed to communicate with our apex predator trial specimen," he said in a voice that could cut steel. Alex sat at the far end of the table, still wearing his training uniform, the small recording device placed in front of him. "With respect, Director, it's not your apex predator. It's a sapient being with its own name, its own personality, and its own desires. It's been trying to communicate with cadets for years." "Impossible," muttered Commander Drack, the Terek military liaison. "My own son faced that creature last month. It was pure animal instinct. Attack and counterattack. Because that's how your son interpreted its behavior," Alex replied calmly. "But look at the medical reports. Every cadet who has faced the Shadow Stalker in the past 50 trials has survived. Many with minor injuries, some with no injuries at all. For a creature supposedly designed by evolution to be the perfect killer, that's a remarkably poor success rate." Instructor Prime Kalen shifted uncomfortably in his specialized chair. "The creature has been contained for over 40 years. Perhaps its hunting instincts have been diminished by captivity. Or perhaps it was never hunting at all." Alex activated the recording device. "I documented my entire interaction with the creature. Listen to this." The chamber filled with the sounds from the arena. The Shadow Stalker's vocalizations were clearly audible, and even to untrained ears they sounded more like conversation than aggression. When Alex's laughter joined the mix, several council members shifted uneasily. "This is the sound of a human in mortal danger?" Director Thane asked sarcastically. "This is the sound of 2 intelligent beings making first contact," Alex replied. "The creature I met today isn't a mindless predator. It's curious, playful, and desperately lonely. It's been isolated in that containment cell for decades with no understanding of why." Dr. Sarah Chen, the Academy's xenobiologist, leaned forward. "Even if we accept that the Shadow Stalker shows signs of intelligence, that doesn't change its fundamental nature. It's still a creature from Nihilus 3, evolved for extreme violence." "Evolved for survival in an extremely hostile environment," Alex corrected. "But survival doesn't mean mindless aggression. Look at the original expedition reports from Nihilus 3. Shadow Stalkers were observed using tools, working together in complex group hunts, and displaying what the researchers called ritualized combat that rarely resulted in death." He pulled up a holographic display from his data pad. The first contact team noted that Shadow Stalkers seemed to have a complex social structure. They observed greeting ceremonies, play behavior among juveniles, and what appeared to be teaching activities between adults and young. "Then how do you explain the aggression?" Commander Drack demanded. "Multiple expedition members were killed during first contact, because the expedition team did exactly what our cadets have been doing. They saw a large predator and immediately assumed hostile intent. When the Shadow Stalkers approached using their normal greeting behaviors, the humans opened fire. The creatures defended themselves. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Director Thane's skin had shifted to an even deeper purple. "You're suggesting that first contact with the Shadow Stalkers was a tragic misunderstanding?" "I'm suggesting that we've been making the same mistake for 300 years. We captured what we thought was a dangerous animal and put it in a cage. But what we actually captured was a person." Dr. Chen activated her own data display. "I've been reviewing the biological data we have on Shadow Stalkers. If we look at their brain structure, particularly the regions associated with social cognition and communication," she paused, her expression growing troubled. "The neural complexity is consistent with higher intelligence. How did we miss this?" "Because we weren't looking for it," Alex said simply. "We saw what we expected to see, a monster from a deathworld. But the creature down there isn't a monster. Its name translates roughly to seeker of new things. It's an explorer. probably the equivalent of a xenobiologist or anthropologist among its own people. The recording device crackled to life again as Alex played another segment. This time, the Shadow Stalker's voice was clearly attempting to mimic human speech patterns. The words were distorted but recognizable. "Friend Alex, play again tomorrow?" The council member stared at the device in stunned silence. Commander Drac was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "It learned human speech in one session?" "The basics, yes. Its vocal apparatus is remarkably flexible. But more than that, it understood the concept of names, of individual identity, of future planning. These are all markers of advanced cognitive function." Director Thane stood slowly, his aged frame seeming to carry the weight of centuries. "If this is true, if the Shadow Stalker is truly sapient, then every trial we've conducted has been a forced interaction between a lonely, intelligent being and terrified young people who couldn't understand what it was trying to communicate." Alex finished. "The creature thought the trials were some kind of strange social ritual. It's been trying so hard to make friends, and every time the friend would attack it or run away in fear." Dr. Chen had gone pale. "The psychological trauma alone, decades of isolation, repeated rejection of social overtures, constant misunderstanding of its attempts at communication. And yet it never gave up," Alex said softly. "Every new cadet who entered that arena it approached with hope. Maybe this time someone would understand. Maybe this time someone would want to be friends." Instructor Prime Kalen's mandibles clicked rapidly, the restraint it showed during trials. It could have killed any cadet easily, but it held back because it didn't want to hurt potential friends. "Even when they attacked it first," Alex nodded. "Even when they came in armed and armored and ready for war, it still tried to play. It still hoped for connection." The chamber erupted in heated discussion as the full scope of the situation became clear. Voices raised in argument, dismay, and in some cases, desperate attempts to deny the obvious truth. Silence. Director Thane's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The ancient Vulcarian's skin had shifted through the entire spectrum of stress colors and was now approaching the black hue that indicated rage. But his anger wasn't directed at Alex. 3 centuries, he said quietly. 3 centuries of what amounts to torture. And worse, we made it a tradition. We called it character building. We made young people participate in the systematic abuse of an intelligent being. What do we do now? Dr. Chen asked, her scientific mind already grappling with the implications. We need to assess the creature's psychological state, attempt proper communication protocols, begin the process of rehabilitation. First, Alex interrupted, we stop calling it the creature. Its name is approximately Seeker, and though I'm still working on the proper pronunciation. And second, we need to figure out how to get it home. Commander Drac leaned forward aggressively. Home to Nihilus 3? That world is quarantined. No ship has attempted to land there since the original expedition, because we assumed everything there was hostile. But what if we were wrong about that too? What if the Shadow Stalkers aren't violent predators but a peaceful species that was defending their world from what they saw as an invasion? The implications hung heavy in the air. If Alex was right, humanity and the Galactic Alliance had spent centuries avoiding contact with an intelligent species based on a fundamental misunderstanding. Director Thane activated the chamber's communication system. All trial activities are hereby suspended pending a full review. Dr. Chen, I want a complete psychological and physical evaluation of the Shadow Stalker, with proper xenobiological protocols for sapient contact. Commander Drac, begin reviewing all historical data about Nihilus 3. Instructor Kalen, start developing new curricula that don't involve traumatizing intelligent beings. He turned to Alex. And you, Cadet Rivers, will continue working with our guest. If it trusts you, you may be our only hope of undoing 3 centuries of damage. As the council members filed out, Dr. Chen approached Alex. This changes everything we thought we knew about first contact protocols, about determining sapience, about the ethics of containment. How did you see what hundreds of trained xenobiologists missed? Alex smiled, the same expression that had delighted his new friend in the arena below. Maybe because I wasn't looking for a monster. I was just looking for someone who might want to be friends. The recording device on the table crackled one more time with the Shadow Stalker's voice, clear and unmistakably hopeful. Alex, come back. Seeker waits for friend Alex. 6 months later, the Galactic Military Academy looked very different. Where once the underground containment cells had housed a lone prisoner, Now a comfortable habitat had been constructed with natural lighting, climbing structures, and most importantly, regular social interaction. Alex sat cross-legged on the soft floor of what was now called the Cultural Exchange Center, watching as Seeker demonstrated advanced color-shifting techniques to a group of fascinated xenobiology students. The Shadowstalker's skin rippled through patterns that were part communication, part art, and part pure joy at having an audience that appreciated the display. "Today we practice new words," Alex said in the pidgin language they had developed together, a mixture of human speech and Shadowstalker vocalizations that somehow worked for both species. Seeker's amber eyes lit up with enthusiasm. The months of proper social contact had transformed the lonely, frustrated creature into something remarkable. Gone was the restless pacing and signs of psychological distress. In their place was curiosity, playfulness, and an intelligence that amazed everyone who met Seeker. "Yes, words good," Seeker replied, the consonants still challenging but the meaning clear. "Learn new thing always good." Dr. Chen entered the habitat carrying a datapad filled with the latest reports from the Nihilus 3 research expedition. The new mission, launched 2 months ago with proper first contact protocols, had made remarkable discoveries. "Seeker," she said, settling carefully on the floor nearby, "we have messages from your home world." The effect was immediate and profound. Seeker's entire body went still. Colors shifting to patterns Alex had learned indicated intense emotion. When Seeker spoke, the words came in the liquid, musical tones of the native language. "Family? Pack siblings? They live? They remember Seeker?" Alex translated for Dr. Chen, though her expression showed she had understood the emotional content, if not the words. "Yes, they remember. They've been looking for you for over 40 years. They call you the one who sought stars." What followed was 20 minutes of the most complex emotional display Alex had ever witnessed. Seeker cycled through colors and patterns that spoke of grief, joy, hope, and desperate longing. The vocalizations ranged from subsonic rumbles that vibrated through the floor to high, pure notes that brought tears to human eyes. Seeker settled into the deep blue-green pattern that meant contentment mixed with sadness. "Seeker want go home. Want see pack siblings. But also," the great head turned to look at Alex. "Want Alex come too. Want show pack siblings, good human friend?" "That might actually be possible," Dr. Chen said carefully. "The expedition team reports that the Shadowstalker clans are not only peaceful, but actively interested in establishing formal contact with the Alliance. They've been trying to understand why we stopped visiting their world after the initial misunderstanding." Alex felt his heart race with excitement and terror in equal measure. The idea of visiting an entire world of beings like Seeker was both thrilling and terrifying. "What about the dangers? Nihilus 3 is still classified as a deathworld. Dangerous for those who don't understand it, yes, but the expedition team reports that with Shadowstalker guides, the environment is manageable. The flora and fauna that seemed so hostile to the original expedition are actually part of a complex ecosystem that the Shadowstalkers have learned to live with." Seeker had been following the conversation intently, switching between languages as understanding allowed. "Nihilus 3 not deathworld. Nihilus 3 is learning world. Is growing world. Is homeworld where everything teaches something new." The distinction was profound. What humans had seen as a planet designed to kill them, the Shadowstalkers saw as an endless source of education and growth. The dangerous predators were challenges to overcome. The hostile environment was a teacher that made them stronger and smarter. "Pack siblings make ready welcome ceremony," Seeker continued, the patterns on the creature's skin shifting to what Alex recognized as excitement. "Want meet human friend who made first real talk? Want learn human words, human songs, human play?" Over the following weeks, the Academy became a hub of activity as preparations began for the first formal diplomatic mission to Nihilus 3. Alex found himself at the center of it all, no longer the dismissed human who relied too heavily on tools and curiosity, but the bridge between two species who had misunderstood each other for centuries. The other cadets, once skeptical of human capabilities, now sought Alex out for advice on xenopsychology and first contact protocols. Nira had become Seeker's second favorite human, her cat-like reflexes allowing her to participate in the complex chase games that were apparently a fundamental part of Shadowstalker social bonding. Braun, still bearing faint scars from his trial, had overcome his initial fear to become one of Seeker's most enthusiastic students. The big Tarek was learning Shadow Stalker combat techniques, which turned out to be less about violence and more about the artful display of strength and skill. Seeker teach gentle strong, Braun explained to Alex one day after a particularly intense training session. How to show power without bringing harm is better way than Tarek fighting. Even Lynn had blossomed under Seeker's patient tutelage. Her mental abilities, which had always isolated her from others, were welcomed by the Shadow Stalker as another form of communication. The two would sit for hours in comfortable silence, sharing thoughts and emotions directly. Director Thane had aged visibly during the months of revelation and change, but there was also a lightness to him that hadn't been there before. The Academy's dark tradition had been replaced with something far more valuable: genuine understanding between species. The Galactic Council has approved the establishment of a new department, he announced during one of Alex's regular briefings. Interspecies communication and understanding, with you as the founding director when you graduate. Me? But I'm just a cadet. I don't have any formal training in xenobiology or diplomacy. You have something more valuable, Seeker interjected from where the great being was carefully arranging colorful stones in complex patterns. You have seeing beyond fear. You have friend-making heart. As the departure date for Nihilus 3 approached, Alex found himself both excited and apprehensive. The recording device that had started everything sat on his desk, now filled with hours of documentation about Shadow Stalker culture, language, and social structure. But more than that, it contained the sound that had changed everything: laughter. Human and Shadow Stalker laughter, the universal expression of joy and connection that transcended species barriers. The night before departure, Seeker came to find Alex in his quarters. The great being had to duck to fit through the doorway but moved with characteristic grace to settle on the specially reinforced floor. Alex, friend, worry about tomorrow? Seeker asked, the skin pattern showing concern. A little, Alex admitted. What if your people don't accept me the way you did? What if I make some terrible mistake that ruins everything? Seeker's response was the deep rumbling sound that Alex had learned to love: Shadow Stalker laughter. Alex, friend, make same worry sound Seeker made before first trial. What if human friend not understand Seeker? What if Seeker say wrong thing? And look how that turned out, Alex smiled. Yes, look how. Seeker's pattern shifted to the complex display that meant love, friendship, and unshakable loyalty. Pack siblings will see what Seeker sees. Human friend who looks with clear eyes. Human friend who makes laugh sounds when others make fear sounds. Human friend who turns stranger into family. As they sat together in comfortable silence, Alex reflected on how much had changed since that day in the arena. The Academy's trials now focused on understanding rather than survival. Students learned to communicate before they learned to fight. The Shadow Stalker containment cells had been converted into cultural exchange centers, and most importantly, what had once been humanity's introduction to galactic society as the weak, tool-dependent species had become something far more valuable. Their reputation as the species that could find friendship in the most unlikely places. Ready for tomorrow, friend Alex? Seeker asked as the lights dimmed toward sleep cycle. Alex looked at his alien friend, this being who had taught him that the universe was full of potential friends disguised as enemies, waiting only for someone brave enough to look beyond the surface and offer understanding instead of fear. Ready, friend Seeker, he replied. Let's go home. Outside his window, the stars beckoned, no longer cold and distant but warm with possibility. Somewhere among them was a world full of beings who had been waiting 40 years for their lost family member to return, and for the human friend who had made it possible. The sound of Shadow Stalker laughter drifted through the corridors of the Academy, mixing with human voices and the excited chatter of a dozen other species. It was the sound of understanding, of bridges built across the vast gaps between worlds and minds and hearts. It was the sound of the future,